Hello everyone, Percy7 here, back again with more Basalt content with the same strategy, Ice, Wizard, and NG. At the time I'm recording this video, I have all tier 4 wizards unlocked. Now it's just time to start the long grind towards Prince of Darkness, which is going to be my first tier 5 for wizard. Next is going to be Archmage, and then Wizard Lord Phoenix, because WLP is the most expensive cost-wise. Something I actually missed in the patch notes, and you may have noticed in the previous episode, I didn't really understand why Dartling was all of a sudden so used. Is because, well, as looking at the patch notes, a lot of the tier 2 upgrades for Dartling was made cheaper. I believe it was powerful shots and faster barrel spin if I'm not mistaken, and the base pierce got increased from 2 to 3. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, having just pierce like increased by +1, but as you've seen with tack, getting -1 pierce just really made it fall off hard. You really don't see as many tack users now. Or at least you don't see any in Ceramic Crucible / Moab Pit. Maybe in BFB Coliseum or like lower than Ceramic Crucible. But even in Lead Dungeon I didn't really see too many attack users. Except for like I guess one on Basalt Columns, which you will see today. It was a pretty fun match. Well, believe it or not, like that was actually my first match on Basalt Columns, because usually I end up skipping it or other people end up skipping it. It just so happened that like with both of our combined skips, it just so happened to land on Basalt Columns. It is a weird map. I still haven't understand how the track works, but like I did understand it enough to I guess eke out a win. Now I am kind of curious to see why everyone's using Dartling, simply because you have to afford a Hydra Rocket Pods by around 12 in order to actually beat Camo Leads, or find another tower that can de-camo the Camo Leads, which is probably a lot cheaper, but I mean, that is something I have seen people do, is they save up for Hydra Rocket Pods by round 12. And I have tested it out myself. When the game first came out, I actually did use Dartling quite a bit, as I figured it was probably going to be pretty decent, but then I figured out, after thinking, I realized, like Dartling's a late game tower. Mid game is kind of meh. You really have like BADS and like Rocket Storm. It's like your main DPS, maybe Plasma Accelerator, but like really, those are they're better mid-game towers than those three options. I also thought to myself, I am gonna need some form of cat generation, whether it be farms or village or like snipers or whatever, simply because Dartling tier 5s are all pretty expensive, and of course you do want to afford them for late game, especially Mad and like Bez. I'm not sure how good Ray of Doom is, but if it's based off vanilla BTD6, then it's probably pretty bad. Anyways, my opponent was kind of smart in Senna and Whites this round, which is incredibly annoying for me, as I had to get a second engineer in order to like fully defend off the White Bloons. I could like kind of risk it and only have like one engineer upgrade to like a 202 or like a 203, and just hope and pray that Ice can catch all the pinks and yellows that'll like come by. But Ice sucks against fast Bloons, so I'm not even gonna risk it. Now, of course, this prevents me from getting Bloon Trap, which is what I was trying to go for, as I was saving up, just a bit more money, and that's why I was still sending Bloons around 5, but, simply because I had to buy the extra engineer in order to fend off White Bloons, I decided it was just better just to set up my wizard. It's making me think, if I should change my strategy, switch out wizard for something like village, simply because, village, of course, gives camo detection instead of having to rely on wizard's de-camo, which is incredibly annoying. There have been times where I lose matches because like shimmer just doesn't de-camo the purple Bloons. That's like kind of frustrating, and like of course I could like buy, or not buy, I could sell it and like get an embrittlement, but embrittlement's too slow to actually like to defend like a decent size camo purple rush, so it's not even worth it. At that point I just accept defeat. But I've been thinking of switching over to using village, simply because like engineers tier 5s are like semi-expensive, like XXL trap, and of course Ultra Boost is actually 120k in this game. I think that's a price increase from BTD6, as I think it was like what, like 108,000. I'm not like too sure because I don't really use Ultra Boost often. I never get the opportunity to because of how expensive it is, like outside of like bosses. But anyways, of course village with Monkey Town, you give extra eco. And of course, the homeland buff to Sentry Champion would be insane. Combine that with Overclock and you would shred pretty much every Bloon type. Anyways, Link is coming in with a Purple Rush, which is easily taken down by my Harsh Shards. I had to end up boosting in order to defend it, but it didn't really take down too many lives. All it did was just really force me to get a Sentry Expert, which I was gonna have to do anyways later on. But then I realized, that rush kind of hurts him as he has no camo lead popping power, so I just end up sending boosted camo leads in here. I just decided to taunt him with the emote. He sells his super and gets a Hydra rocket pods, but he just gets it a bit too late. So anyways, I just like to point out, you want to set up your defense before you rush, because if you don't, you are, and the person defends that rush, you are like very, very vulnerable to a counter rush. You won't have enough money to actually defend the counter rush, and if you like you do, you'll just be like a very bad spot and lose like most of your lives, so your opponent could just easily kill you off. Now this match here I thought was actually pretty funny. I ended up getting my opponent down to 1 life, like exactly. At first I thought it was just kind of like, I don't know, maybe it wasn't synced properly, but it was a pretty funny match. I didn't end up recording the whole thing, and of course it's a pretty quick match, so I just decided to just start sending like the fastest balloons I can at him, until he actually ends up having to boost or just defend pinks. So of course, if he can barely defend pinks, then he can't defend whites, and of course his boost is gonna run out and he won't have it unless he buys another tower, but he actually ends up buying Gwendolyn. But Gwendolyn won't really help against the white balloons unless he bought level 3 as fast as possible. But this was a pretty funny match, if I'm being honest. Getting your opponent down to 1 life is kind of funny, but I kind of feel bad for him. Now this match here against Ben the Beast HD was one of the best matches I've had. This was actually like one of my first times like legitimately going late game and like not actually like dying to DDTs. It was pretty fun, and it like kind of showed me that I kind of do need to start ecoing like a lot harder than I do early game, as late game I kind of suck against at the moment, because really most of my late game defense really just depends on like the tier 5s that I have. Like of course you have like Phoenix, but I mean that's kind of Wizards tier 4s aren't really great against DDTs. Like the best would probably be Arcane Spike, and even then that struggles hard, again, especially against Fortifieds. And of course it also showed me just how great boomers are, like mid game. Like Turbocharge is actually like pretty nutty and insane, if I'm like being honest. And you'll see like later on like why later on in this video. Anyways, I'm gonna skip forward early game, because early game you've guys seen it enough. It's basically just like the same strategy as before. Just like start from wizard into engineer, not start wizard, start with ice into engie into wizard, the standard stuff. And this guy has a bio boomer over there at the other side, so it is kind of interesting to see, as I've never seen someone use like middle path against mob class balloons. And of course turbocharge is like excels against mob class balloons. It's basically what it was built for, so I was kind of excited to see just how well it would do over there. Now here I decided to get a necromancer, as again, I wanted to see why not. This was around the time where I just unlocked Necromancer, and I wasn't really sure, like, just how good it was. My only really main complaint with it, like I said in the last video, is like spawning. I feel like the balloons don't really spawn in like the best locations. And also, just looking back at this footage, it really just showed me that like I was like not ecoing, even though I really should have. The reason why is just because I was actually just thinking. I was really just like thinking about like okay, how do I want to kill my opponent? And like when do I want to send that rush. I was too busy thinking about that I wasn't actually like just focusing on ecoing and just, I guess, living in the moment sort of. I sent some Regro ceramics and hoped that I actually beat him, because as you see in the last video, Ricochet kind of sucks against Regro ceramics, and the bio boomer he has down there like easily defends it. When I saw that he actually defended that rush, I just knew that, this game was definitely going to go to like round 26 plus, which it ended up doing. It was a pretty fun match to play. It really got me like I was able to actually test out like my defense properly. One of my main things I wish was added was like a defense mode. Now I send a mob just like fully knowing he's going to be able to defend it, but I just wanted to feel out his defense to see just, where he was at and like how long would it take to kill. So that would like have decided, if I would have sent like maybe a fortified mob and like boosted that at him, but he defends it pretty well, so I decided against it. Now Ben places down a super monkey, which is bad for me, as of course he probably has Dark Knight unlocked, and if you don't know, Dark Knight spam is pretty great against DDTs, and probably like the only way you're really going to beat DDTs if you have super for like a really long time, until people start getting access to like Dark Champion, Tech Terror, or Sun Avatar. Although Sun Avatar is kind of meh against DDTs. And he ended up buying a turbocharge down there. You know, like turbocharge. You know, at the time, I didn't really know that turbocharge was pretty good. Even though like IceHab did do like a early access video on it, it was kind of something that I had to play against in order to like really, like, you know, just kind of know. Now I stopped decoying because I was thinking of ways to beat him. I sent him Moabs as well as a few regrow ceramics. My thought process behind this is that the towers would focus on regrow ceramics and they would fall too far behind to actually beat the Moabs. And turbocharge with the ability as well as boost was easily able to dominate all those Moabs. You know, looking back, you know, I probably could have like sent more Moabs because, well, his ability would have been down. And he sends some boosted Moabs at me, which is no problem as I have Arcane Mastery, which is fairly decent against Moab class Bloons. You know, he did send some boosted Moabs at me. I ended up boosting myself and using Gwen's ability, even though I really didn't need to. I wasn't really sure how good my defense is against it, but you know, yeah, I have faith in Arcane Mastery. Now here I sell both my Ice and Engineer for Arcane Spike, as of course, you know, that was probably the best like mid to late game tower that I had access to right now, and I quickly had to get back an Engineer before he like sends camo purples at me. Now surprisingly, Ben the Beast isn't, you know, being like too aggressive with rushing. You know, he's like, aside from the Moabs he sent, that's basically it. And I kind of would have expected, you know, just to have him like, you know, feel out my defense a bit and just see like where I was at. But surprisingly, like, he has a primary like training. This is the first primary training I've seen, which like leads me to believe, you know, turbocharge is going to be his main DPS. As really Glaive Lord, I guess, would be decent against ceramics. Moab Dom, like, I saw Aliens Rocks video on it, and Moab Dom is honestly just kind of bad. Although Moab Press, you know, isn't too bad. Anyways, I figured it was around the time I should start trying to kill him. He sends a BFB at me, which again, I feel, you know, is a bit too little. He sends some fortified ceramics, but you know, I have Arcane Spike, and I feel like, you know, Arcane Spike could easily handle this. I get a Sentry Expert just in case. As well as the BFB, Ben sends some Rico Rainbows at me. This leads me to believe that he didn't have Dark Knight and therefore like sucks against CDTs, as really Turbocharge would have been his main DPS, but you know, as soon as the Turbocharge ability comes off cooldown, he's pretty much dead. Although in that time, I probably would have been dead too because he could have sent DDTs my way, and I really don't have much CDT popping power. The best I could do is slow him down with Snowstorm. Anyways, the death round's coming up soon, round 26, so I start stockpiling some money as ecoing at this point. You know, I feel like I didn't eco enough, so it would have been too little too late. It wouldn't really have made any sense since I would have died in 2 rounds anyways, so I just have been wasting money. He starts spamming supers without getting Dark Knight, which is a bit curious. Anyways, I get Arctic Wind preemptively just to slow down ceramics. Now, because I suspected he had Dark Knights during this match, you know, why else would he be spamming supers? I decided to like sort of distract his towers, so I turn off my fortified modifier and send a ZOMG to him. Now, I didn't really think, I know the ZOMG is not going to kill him since he has turbocharge, but I just wanted to make him waste his abilities so that way he's like guaranteed dead to DTs, because if he sends any my way, I'm kind of dead. So in response to the ZOMG, he buys another turbocharge and goes bottom path this time. Again, which is kind of a curious decision. I personally feel like Dark Knight would probably have better like Moab DPS. But anyways, I just send fortified DDTs this way. He tries using the ability against them, but he just can't damage them. You know, it was good on me to actually send fortifieds. If they were definitely regulars, he would have definitely defended those. So GG Ben, GG. Now this match was kind of a fun match as well. This was really my first match I was actually able to use Summon Phoenix and really show off how good it is. Something that surprised me is that, well, Summon Phoenix ability cooldown is instant. You don't have to wait 5 seconds for it, unlike some abilities like Homeland. It's really the only one I can think of, mainly because it was in the patch notes. Again, I'm skipping early game as there really isn't much to talk about, and the start's pretty much the same as like any other map. Anyways, in order to prepare for round 12, I decided to sell my 01 to Ice and get an Ice Shards. My opponent Peach Panda has Tack, Bomb, and Village as his towers, which is a very interesting combo. Just looking at it, you know, it's a strat that you definitely don't want to go late game with, as really the only option to have is like Bloon Crush as like really stunning DDTs, but how are you going to beat the batter? You're just going to like buy and then sell or sell then buy like mobile him over and over and over. I'm not sure what the ability cooldown for mobile him is like, but I can imagine it's not instantaneous. And it's probably, and the ability cooldown's probably like been increased as to like not be too overpowered. Anyways, on round 11 he starts sending purples, but I am sort of easily able to take care of them with ice shards. At this point in time I was really just mainly concerned about getting my balloon trap up, as I did want to give it just one last shot, and you know, I just so desperately wanted it to be good. Anyways, I was like feeling a bit, you know, I guess squeamish about the caramel purples, so I just got Sentry Expert, you know, just to, I guess, just help out. Regardless of me getting Sentry Expert, he tries again with caramel purps, and of course you see Shimmer is just missing everything. You know, it's like, it's really lucky that, you know, Bloontonian Mines has multiple intersections, and it's mainly one reason why I like this map, as well as Mayan. But just, ooh boy, you know, it's kind of just awful just looking at it miss everything. Anyways, I was thinking about doing a counter rush, so I sent some regen rainbows and see if, you know, that would beat him. You know, I was in the back of my mind, I was thinking probably not, since he has overdrive as well as cluster bomb, and you know, those two are pretty good against group balloons. But it was worth a shot anyways, as hey, and you know, you never know. Now, just like looking at the hero choice of Peach Panda, you know, Oben's kind of interesting, as Oben provides no synergy with any of the towers. So looking at it, you know, I feel like Striker or Gwen would probably be like a lot better here. You know, Striker could buff bombs, as really like bombs really gonna be your main DPS late game. Attack zone and like in front of ring also would probably be like semi decent. I send some regen ceramics at him, those fail. In retaliation he sends like camo regen purples, which again do absolutely nothing, and Shimmer is still missing all of them. Now, because Shimmer is missing so much, and it's like actually kind of giving me anxiety just playing this game, I decided to start saving up for embrittlement, as again I'd probably need that late game anyways, as the +1 damage to Moab class balloons is kind of essential. Speaking of Moabs, I actually start setting up my Summon Phoenix over there, as again I want to test it out and see how it was for mid game rushes. It would have probably been my first time using it, as I never really felt a use for Summon Phoenix. I just like place my wizard down just to make, you know, my micro just a bit faster. It's just easier on me. I never really played a battles game before. I do have like one battles video on the channel, but I really only have like 2 hours in that game. And so I've never really had to like do any fast micro before, so it was just kind of ease me into it. Anyways, after long last on round 18, I finally get my Bloon Trap. Just thinking, man, you know, round 18 Bloon Trap, you know, is probably a bit too slow for like an actual competitive game. Like ideally you'd probably want to get it like maybe like before round 10. I personally can get Bloon Trap before round 10 if my opponent's like not being too aggressive on sending white balloons on round 5. But doing that, you know, I've noticed how, you know, I kind of suck against round like 12 and round 13, simply because I spent so much money on Bloon Trap. They don't really have enough money like to buy sprockets or ice shards. So like really my main defense for like round 12 if I go Bloon Trap too early is Bloon Trap, Shimmer, and you know, 202 Engineer, which isn't enough to actually defend round 12. Bloon Trap gets overwhelmed pretty quickly, as he sort of, well, I guess isn't really good representation, as you know, purples are camo. He's still sending, you know, camo perps, not even sure why, because at this point, you know, he's tried so many times and each time's been the same. I've like been just barely able to defend them. Anyways, this natural mob got a lot farther than I originally thought, which is a bit concerning, so I ended up buying Dragon's Breath in the back, just because, you know, it was just kind of there and I didn't really want to sell it, just in case, you know, it sends like fortified BFBs or at me or something. So I'm getting ice in the back, you know, just to really make sure that I just didn't die. And he's still sending, you know, just like camo regen purples at me. You know, at this point, like, I'm kind of surprised he's still sending them. Anyways, I decided to send a BFB at him, as his mob defense is just terrible, as really his main mob defense is like overdrive. He only has 2 cluster bombs, so it was just to make him just spend some money to actually like defend the balloons. And of course I get, you know, to see the plushie BFB skin I sent to him. Now surprisingly, he took that BFB shell down like surprisingly quickly. I didn't really realize that mob damage had that much mob DPS. And it seems like we've had a similar idea on both sides, so we just sent each other a fortified BFB. Now to defend, I just, you know, just upgrade that to tier 4 Phoenix. I didn't really have enough money to buy another one, so I just got an Arcane Mastery. Now over on his end, you know, that fortified BFB was going down, you know, just surprisingly quickly. I really wasn't satisfied with, with the amount of damage I was doing, so I just decided to sell Bloon Trap, just to get another Phoenix. I was tempted to, to sell the current Phoenix I had to get another one. I decided, like, maybe probably not, because I might get rid of the Phoenix that's already up, so I just got another one and just boosted it, and that was, like, easily able to defend it. So I just decided to send a little taunt at him while I'm just watching him die to fortified ceramics. Not gonna lie, Phoenix is a pretty fun tower to use. I got Bloon Trap back, but I am getting the wrong cross path, and it didn't really matter anyways, because he was gonna be dead anyway. I could have just waited, round 26, beat him with fortified DDTs, but that's kind of boring. Everyone does that. I've done that quite a bit, and then, it gets, like, boring to do after a while, so I decided, just to kill my opponent with mid-game rushes, which, to be honest, is a bit more interesting to, to defend, over late-game rushes. Anyways, I wanted to show this match here simply because it was on Basalt columns. I never played on Basalt columns before, so it's pretty different, to see, just to show how different, the strategy for Basalt columns would be on an easier map, I don't know, Docks or Sands of Time. Anyways, I guessed that, Eco Bloons were sent from the right path. I guessed wrong, but it didn't really matter as the Eco Bloons eventually did go over to the right path, so it wasn't too bad. And it probably would have been better to place ice there anyways, as I'd want Gwen, closer to the eco track. Also, just looking at, and thinking about, with Basalt columns and everything, it made me realize that, every map in the game has water. I'm not really sure how I feel about that, because, and on one hand, it's nice that, sub and boat are useful on every map. But on the other hand, it's kind of I guess people can rely too much on boat and sub and not really encourage moving away from those two water towers, as boat and sub are really the only two towers that can be placed on water unless you're gonna use snowstorm for the ice pad. But I can't imagine anyone's gonna go for ice just for the ice pad. Now Jellyfish goes for an interesting tag placement. He places it down towards where the Eco Bloons exit. Looking back and editing the footage now, I definitely could have just pressured him by sending some fast balloons, as of course nothing gets past Quincy's bows except for pinks and yellows, and I'm not really sure if Blade Shooter would have been able to catch all the leaks, especially with round 5 with whites and everything. But he ends up getting boat, so it wouldn't. So my plan would have failed if I would have gotten, and I would have wasted money because. You're not really getting as much eco as, sending group blues as, just sending spaced whites. Or at least at this stage. Now here I'm playing, incredibly cautiously. I end up getting Gwen on round 4, or just at the beginning of round 5, as I really wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to leak too much, as I wasn't sure if my opponent was going to send whites on round 5. He definitely could have, and that would have, hurt a whole lot. As really Gwen and NG would have been my only, my pumping powers, and those two right now probably wouldn't do too much against whites. No, you never can be too cautious, especially in a game like this. You definitely want to be over-prepared than under-prepared. Unless you can micro fast enough to go from under-prepared to over-prepared all of a sudden, but I doubt that. Anyways, he sends whites at me, which is a curious decision. I wonder why he waited then instead of not just sending them immediately. I get 2 ices just because, I was leaking a bit and I didn't really want this leak to get any worse, so I decided, it'd be better just to spend a little bit more money here instead of, just wasting it. But it seems that, Pin Engineer is just doing enough to where the ices didn't even really need to do anything. I was just thinking about, strategies on this map. I definitely do think that global range towers like, Phoenix that I have here would probably be one of the best options here, as well as large range towers like Prince of Darkness, but I'm not sure how it would do on the multi-lane path, as well Prince of Darkness is kind of bad on paths with more than one lane. Anyways, I start setting up my wizard and just, kind of hoping and praying that my opponent just so happens to forget to get decamo or some form of camo detection outside of Quincy. But he has his wizard down in a pretty, again, curious spot, as it is a bit too late to be decamoing Bloons if I'm being completely honest. He ends up getting a Maelstrom, which is a curious decision to defend round 12, although I guess it's sort of an obvious one, but I could easily bait my opponent into using Maelstrom once and then have to buy and resell Maelstrom, which again loses a lot of money. And of course there is no guarantee that Maelstrom can actually defend all the balloons that are rushed out. Anyways, I get it ice preemptively in the back as I really wasn't sure just, how good I was going to be for the next round. So I was going to think about getting an Arctic Wind, but then, I decided, Arctic Wind is a bit too expensive to really get at this point, and I probably would want to actually spend on actual defense for the front, because really, NG is really my only defense. But I liked having it there as just sort of a safety net. I decided to feel out his defense a bit by sending purples, and he ends up having to use Maelstrom to defend, which is a terrible, terrible decision, as I just send regen purples again next round. And so he tries to buy and sell Maelstrom again. He couldn't do it fast enough, unfortunately. He would have been better off boosting to defend or just have gotten a second Maelstrom. Anyways, I want to end the video off on a pretty exciting note, so be sure to subscribe, like, comment, whatever. I don't really care if you do or don't, but it would be nice if you did. Anyways, I'm going to end the video by getting a Century Champion, my first tier 5, and a tier 5 I really won't be able to use for a while.